Our guest speakers today are Chief James Whiteford from the Edwardsville Fire Department and our own Chad Morris, an architect with AAIC in Collinsville. I asked these gentlemen to speak to us today about the city's newest fire station, which is currently under construction on the east end of Governor's Parkway. Chad's going to talk about the design features, and Chief Whiteford is going to explain the planned operations and how this new station at this location will enhance their capabilities. Now a little bit about Chief Whiteford. Chief Whiteford has been involved in the fire service for nearly 30 years. For the last 27 years, he's worked for the city of Edwardsville, and he has served in every rank. He was promoted to fire chief in July of 2020. Chief Whiteford is a graduate of Western Illinois University and the National Fire Academy Executive Fire Officer Program. In addition to his duties as our fire chief, he serves as the president of MAVIS Division 35. MAVIS is a statewide mutual aid organization. He also serves as Region 10 representative for the Illinois Fire Chiefs Association. Chad Morris grew up in Staunton, just like some other distinguished members of our club. Chad received a bachelor's degree in architecture from SIUE Carbondale in 2002. He's certified by the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards. He's a member of the American Institute of Architects and is the 2023 board member of the American Institute of Architects Illinois Prairie Chapter. He's a lead green associate, which I'm sure if you have some free time, he can explain that to you. He's currently director of architecture for AAIC, and he was the project architect and designer for the new fire station. Please join me in welcoming our guests. Thanks, best. Are you changing?
Go ahead. Yeah, I'll change it.
Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you. That was a very nice lunch. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for having us here today. A chance to talk about the fire station that we're building out on the east side of town. So our plan for this building actually started about 10 years ago. In 2014, the then current Mayor Niebuhr requested a study being done to see what our response capabilities in the city were for fire. And what led to that was the growth of Edwardsville. So if you think back to those of you that have been around for a while, 27 years ago when I started on the fire department, it was a very north-south oriented community. So Edwardsville had a railroad track that ran through the center. And if that train stopped on that track, you couldn't get north or south of town. So at that point, we had two fire stations, one on the north side of the tracks and one on the south side of the tracks. And that made a lot of sense for placement. However, over the last 10, 15, 20 years, Edwardsville has grown east and west, and we're now almost 12 miles across east and west. So we're a lot farther spread out this way than we are north and south like we used to. And that was becoming evident when this study was done. So we performed a study that included looking at the location of current calls, the populations that were in those parts of the town, and the projected growth for those areas. And based on that, we really didn't have any preconceived notions on how many fire stations we needed or where they needed to be located. But looking at that, it became pretty apparent that we need an east-west orientation for the stations, just like the community. And the only way to do that effectively would be with 3 stations because the distance is so great. Even now, we have our farthest east station is still a 6-minute response from our farthest part of town. So that's kind of pushing the outside limit of what emergency response wants. Usually 5 or 6 minutes is kind of your max response that you're looking for. So anyway, so this is how we ended up with this. And this shows a little bit of the, how do I get this one to show what that one's got?
In terms of
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's your next, that might be your next slide.
So this is control up there. That's a
Correct.
Yeah, so this shows a couple of things. So in relation to that study, we looked at the small colored circles are a heat map that shows where the volume of calls are the highest for us. And you can see the distribution across the area. The purple dots are single calls. The ones with numbers in them show how many calls we've had in each one of those numbered areas. This year, we've set a new record for responses. We've got almost 4,000 calls this year. Is 3,993 calls that we got. So that's over the last 5 years, that's 1,000 calls more. That's 25% increase over the last 5 years for our response. But anyway, so this shows the location of the 3 stations, and then the rings around the stations represent a 2-minute, a 4-minute, and a 6-minute response time. And so using that, that's kind of how we determined where the location of these stations should go. So the whole project was funded in 2014. The quarter-cent sales tax was passed by the city to start being collected in 2015. And then 2015 started construction for the campus station. So that was the addition of a 3rd station for us. We still had the main station, the Montclair station, and then the campus station was the first time Edwardsville had 3 fire stations. So that opened in November of 2016. And then November of 2017, we opened the new main station across the street here. It's called the Public Safety Building because it houses fire, police, dispatch, and then fire does EMS also. So fire, EMS, dispatch, and police are all coming out of this station here. And Tim Har was instrumental in making both the campus station and this station happen with his position with the city at the time. We wouldn't have these without his help. So you're still appreciated for that, Tim. Yeah, so that was the first station, and the second station was this one. So now we're stepping into phase 3, which is replacing the Montclair station. So Montclair is located behind the McDonald's off of Troy Road there, and the location on there was basically due south of where this main station is. And when we built this one, we moved it even farther south than it was previously. So that put it in closer proximity to Montclair than what was before. So doing that it's just part of the plan to get the 3 stations distributed pretty evenly across the town. The location for the new station, we bought 2 acres in 2018. I'm sorry, lost track of my numbers there. I guess it was 2022. They purchased the new station property, and that's on Governor's Parkway. It's just to the east of District Drive there where the school is. About 400 yards on the left is where that's going to be. And yeah, so that's kind of how the locations came to be for where we are and how we got to this area in the project.
Yeah. So the project site and everybody, I've been lucky enough to work with Chief Whiteford and the city, and very thankful to have this opportunity to talk about the design of this fire station. The city approached us quite some time ago to participate in some of that feasibility study, and we were lucky enough on this go around to be able to design the facility. So we wrapped that up earlier this year, and it is in process of construction. We've got some photos to show a little bit of that progress as well. This is a project site. Governor's Way subdivision is just to the west of this property. And in terms of the overall layout of the city, it's east of town. This is a little bit of a graphic. You can get an idea of where that original outline of that property is. Governor's Parkway is out here. Forgive me, I wish I had a little bit of an extension to give you a little more context, but there will be a cut through the berm, as you probably, some of you may have already seen, where they've cut through and they've got the construction traffic. But for the sake of safety and efficiency, the engines would and apparatus would flow in a circular pattern throughout the site. Operationally, the intent is there so that it minimizes the need for for the engines to have to back in spaces. It just causes conflict sometimes and accidents that can be well avoided. And it gives them a little bit of additional room to lay out hoses and do training and all different kinds of things that firefighters need to do to keep up their certification. So it's been a good site. There were some initial moisture issues in the subgrade soil that we had to contend with, but so far they've been chugging along pretty well. That footprint that you saw on the previous slide encompasses about 8,500 square feet. There are 3 apparatus bays, and when you come into the front door, you'd be greeted by a shift officer, but that also serves as a, sort of the shift management person for that particular shift at that time from this facility. You come in the vestibule and look directly across to a day room and a kitchen area to serve the firefighters. There's, of course, toilet facilities for public center, but also in close proximity for the shift office. And then a bunk space for 4 firefighters and a lieutenant. The lieutenant generally, they need a little bit more privacy, so they have their separate space. They call our forms and reports and need that additional separate space. And then 2 showers facilities for the firefighters, as well as a laundry area with a tub sink and a washer and a dryer, and then a fitness room with workout equipment, treadmills, weights, etc. And as you cross from the administrative portion to the actual apparatus portion, there is a EMS storage, which has some secure storage for securing any sort of controlled substances that they might need wherever they go on the runs. But then also any of the supplies that the EMS need, just keep them secure and dry and off the beaten path. And for the main gear storage that the firefighters use in all their runs, all their equipment, their coveralls, helmets and things are included in this room in a series of racks. And this space will also serve as a storm shelter. James will talk about that in a moment. And then just maintenance, because you've got large engines, you've got large equipment, you've got a lot of things that need to get fixed. Luckily, the chief's got folks on staff, and they have a pretty good DIY operation going on, but they like tools at hand when they need them. And then, again, a large enough apparatus bay to service the needs of the facility. These are approximately 60 feet plus or minus, and they have a nice feature. These 4 folding doors, which again we'll get into a little bit more detail in the next presentation. So this building was a bit of a throwback to the initial concept was to go back to an older fire station design. As you can see, it kind of turned out a little bit more modern. But in old fire station times, the doors were generally larger and taller, like all fire stations, but then you'd have the glass above, and there'd be a second level. Well, obviously, we wouldn't have a second level, so we took that second level and we put it next to it. And then we said, well, you need a welcoming entrance and a canopy to keep rain off of folks' head. But we also needed the ability for someone who was at a post to be able to see all around the front when folks came in, when the engines were leaving, if there was an obstruction in the driveway, for example. And this person needed a view not only to the exterior of the drive, but also into the apparatus bay from the interior. So that's where that shift office is positioned. Again, with all the signage to identify and the landscaping is not quite sure, but it will be a fully finished landscape site. Then the doors.
Yeah, so let me clarify a couple things that Chad was talking about there. So basically, this station is very similar in layout and size to the campus station, which is the other remote station we have. So not a lot of changes there. We did make some. There were a few things that after using the station for a few years, we realized could be tweaked to improve efficiency of operations. So we made a few changes to the floor plan, but basically it's very similar. You pointed out that there's 4 bunks plus the lieutenant out there. That's designed for future growth. So currently, we'll almost always have only 2 stationed at this station with our current staffing. But eventually, that as Edwardsville continues to grow, they're going to need space. And the idea of this building was to build a building that's going to be good for at least 50 years. So 50 years from now, how many firefighters will we have, and what will their needs be is the question that Chad was helping us to answer as we went through the design phase here. So yeah, it's a very, very good layout. There are a couple of things in here that are unique, I think, that bear pointing out. So the first one Chad mentioned was the storm shelter. So that was kind of a topic that came to light with the tornado that hit the Amazon building a year ago. That storm shelters in this part of the country are something that are probably more needed than some areas in the country. So as we were building this, we thought we'd take the opportunity to make sure that there was a storm shelter in place in this building. So firefighters that are on duty there or any public that might be in the building would have a place to go in inclement weather. So we didn't want to dedicate a bunch of square footage to this area that might be used in the future. We wanted all of our square footage to be operational. So that's where Chad was able to direct us into making that area our bunker gear storage area and then doubling as a storm shelter. So it can do both. So that's a pretty unique feature. The next one is the doors that he's got here. So the overhead doors are a constant problem for a fire department. So we're using them all day long, every day. We go in and out of them. Anybody that knows anything about them knows that they're rated for a certain number of cycles, a certain number of times that they go up and down before they're supposed to need maintenance or repair. Those that at our other stations where we have overhead doors, they're a constant problem. So I look back at the cost of repairs that we've spent on these over the last 5 years and compared that to the cost of these doors, and it really is going to offset the cost of positive for the city to go with this style door. The advantage here is that the weight is being borne at the bottom of the door rather than trying to have apparatus up top that's lifting the entire weight of the door. So these doors operate on a slide on the bottom. There are a couple other things that are just inherent to their design, which are a big help. So one of the problems we have, some of the maintenance issue we have with the doors at the fire department is that when the firefighters hop in the truck and there's a fire call and they hit the button for the garage door to go up, they're always estimating when it gets high enough that they're going to be able to get that truck under there so they can get out because they're in a hurry. That's what we do. Sometimes our estimation is not all that good. So yeah, so we've had a few of those over the years. With these doors, they open side to side and you have a clear view of when it's wide enough to get the fire truck through. Not only that, but they open side to side in about a third of the amount of time that it takes for an overhead door to go up. These open quickly because it's both sides moving at the same time. So there's a lot more speed involved, which aids our ability to respond quickly. And then that speed also comes into play with savings for energy, because during the winter when we're heating the bay, every time we open an overhead door, all that heat goes out of the bay. When we close it, it's got to build back up in order to maintain the heat. So having the operation time cut by 2/3, it's going to be that much less heat that's escaping from the fire bay. So these, I think, will be a really big benefit for the station. And then the last thing I want to talk about was the floor heat. So at our old station on North Main, before we moved to this building here, it had radiant floor heat in it. And actually the Montclair station has radiant floor heat also. And over the years, we didn't really necessarily realize how important that was until we moved into stations that didn't have it. And we have good heat in the stations. The problem is it's radiating from down instead of from below. When we bring a truck in that's frozen from being out on a call, it takes a long time for that radiant heat to work its way through all the metal on the top of the truck. Whereas if you have heat in the floor, that immediately rises up, passes through all the mechanicals on the truck, it gets the pump thawed out and the truck warmed up and ready to go again, much more efficiently. Another issue that we have is that our hoses need to be dried. After every time we use a hose, it gets dirty. We have to come back to the station, wash the hoses and dry them. A lot of buildings build a hose drying tower into the building where they can raise the hoses up and have them hang vertically until they dry so they can put them back on the trucks. With the heated floor, you can actually lay the hoses out on the floor and just the radiant heat coming off the floor will dry them quicker than what you'll get if you tried to use passive drying. So there's some savings there in design as well. So yeah, we're real happy about all those. Oh, Chad's showing good pictures. and then solar also. So again, we're trying to make this an efficient station that's good for a long time, and adding solar to it just kind of makes sense in this day and age. So there's it's a 34 kilowatt system. Is that
Yes, and I tried to get some succinct answers for everybody, and I think I actually have a text that says kind of what
okay.
capacity.
It's around 30,000 kilowatts. So it's a good size system. It's not going to completely cover all the electric needs for the station, but it will offset cost of operation over time. It will pay for itself and be a benefit to the city. So we're happy to have that on there as well.
Yeah, it would help with Ameren and it's or the power utility incentives and setting some of those costs. And what the station doesn't use, the city can sell back to the grid. So, and then a few photos of current progress. That's your building. That's great. Yeah. So you see it. There's some foundations. They're doing all the rough end of the piping below the slab, conduit. You see some rebar coming up with these protectives at the end of them, so someone doesn't hurt themselves walking through there. Again, first course of masonry on the interior. That's actually a U-shaped bond beam, and they run a lot of power and things up through the wall to get out to the exterior face. A lot of things happening on site right now. Again, just another view from a little bit of a different angle. Those gentlemen are from Camp Electric, the electrician for the project. And yeah, so there's a little bit more of a detail. We got some water in the cavity there from the rain the other day. But you can see now where that wing of toilets are. So this is that demising wall between the administrative space and the apparatus bay. And or sorry, this is that space to the apparatus building on this side. I got to turn that. This is where the bedroom is.
Yeah, the nice weather we've been having recently has really helped with the construction progress. So
Yeah, we had a little bit of a slow start due to weather, but it's turning itself around. Presently, we are in November.
Any other questions?
okay,
You said,
I'm gonna get ready.
yeah, I think 2 people are there at a time to sleep. You're not setting out a unit for 2 people, so where do the other people come from?
So our response system is pretty complex. Let me see if I can pare it down. We have done over the past 25 years, we have gone to great lengths to make sure that the public is getting the most service they can out of fire and EMS. And part of that is making sure that we have the ability to respond to whatever kind of call comes in whenever it comes in. And in order to do that, that means that all of our firefighters are also trained as paramedics, are also trained as technical rescue specialists in confined space and hazmat and all those. So everyone on the department can do all of those things. So when we have 2 at a station, that's the minimum that we can launch a response with. And it doesn't matter if it's an EMS call, a fire call, or a technical rescue call, we'll send those 2 out in the most appropriate apparatus. So we'll have a fire truck, an ambulance, and some other equipment at this station, just like we do at each station. And so they're called jump companies because when a call comes in, you jump on the right piece of apparatus for that kind of call. So right now we are running a few short. We've got a couple of injuries and a couple of positions that we're trying to fill that haven't been filled. So over the past year, most of the past year, we've been around 6 or 7 on a daily staffing. So 6 or 7 for 3 stations means you have 2, 2, and 2, or 2, 3, and 2. On a good day, we'll have 8 on, and then we can have some additional staffing at the stations. But for now, that's how we go. So if a call comes into that station, the 2 firefighters will jump on the fire truck or the ambulance. They'll respond, and then we will backfill that station with additional firefighters who are called in from home.
Second question, how long a shift will work? 12 hours?
So they do a 24-hour shift. Yeah. So it's 24 hours on and 48 hours off. The first 24 hours off, there's supposed to be the call-in period for them. So as I just mentioned, we would call people off duty to come back. That's the idea, is that 24 on, 24 on call, 24 off, and then you repeat. And there are a number of different schedules out there that are kind of standardized in the fire service. And I spent quite a bit of time looking at them over the past years and determined that this really is the most efficient rotation that you can do with firefighters. So.
Last question on the solar. So 2 ways to solve solar that actually goes into batteries on site, and you're using that, or you just collect it, give it back to the power company, which then you're going to use part of it and then give back the rest.
Yeah, it's your explanation is exactly what. So I didn't get into that detail.
You're just gathering and selling it all. For
Exactly. It's all. It's offset.
So if there's a power
No,
outage,
we don't
you're
have.
still power.
We don't have all of that. No, there's a full generator with a full backup.
Solar.
Correct. The solar is not going to be running anything per se.
It's an offset.
It's offset.
We did a little research into battery banks and their ability to run a fire station, and we found that there aren't hardly any of those in existence yet, and we didn't want to be the groundbreaking experiment for that. So at that point, we decided to go with more of a standard generator. We're using natural gas, so the building will have backup if power goes out.
An average of about 10 calls a day, it sounds like, 4,000 over a year. What's the most common type of run that you do? What's the most common call?
Mostly EMS. We're doing about 74% of our calls are EMS, and the rest of them are fire calls. On the EMS, it just ranges from everything. We do get quite a number of calls that are just lift assists, where someone has fallen and needs help getting up. We do that a lot, both at the long-term care facilities and at people at home. But it really runs the gamut. We have a little of everything here in Edwardsville. So we've got industry, we've got warehousing, we've got medical, we've got business. So all those bring different risk factors. And that's one of the reasons that we cross-train our firefighters to be able to do everything, because you could be on scene with someone who's having a heart attack 1 minute, and then the next minute you could be on scene with someone who's trapped in a heavy machinery in a manufacturing operation, or exposed to radiation, because we have that out in the warehouse district as well. So all those issues we have to be ready for, and we get all of them.
Chief Whiteford, would you be able to stick around a little bit if we have extra questions?
Yes.
Daryl, you have a question, right?
I was just, when you exit that station, is there going to be something done with the curves that make it not really a good exit? Or a light out there at the intersection?
So there's no discussion about a light currently. The berm on Governor's Parkway is set back quite a ways from the roadway. So you have some good visibility there. And once we get done cutting it down, as the construction continues, I think visibility pulling out onto the road is not going to be a significant problem for us. There's also a turn lane there, which helps. So you've got a third lane to take.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
of the Tazowski family and home nursery, who would like to present you with this lovely tulip.
Well, thank you very much. My wife will love it.
Well, Brent is getting the 50-50 ready next week.